Um, Hello there. Welcome to God, I think we're up to episode 13 now. Definitely in the double digits here. Today we are talking, or I should say tonight, I am talking to Lee Aaron, Canadian rock goddess. Or at least back in the 80s, around 84, when I was seeing you show up in like Circus Magazine and Hit Parader and all that fun stuff. That is definitely I don't know. I think it was like seeing the Metal Queen cover and then like it's like really badass epic and this is the fun part because I get to make a guilty confession here. Um I know it's like, you're like a multi-platinum recording artist, but I just don't remember hearing your music back in the day. I knew who you were, but for whatever reason, and then I don't know, it's like, was it did you not really get a lot of play in the States and most?
Yes, you're not the first person to ask this
Right.
question. Um, the deal was that I was signed with a Canadian label,
Right.
and I had multi-platinum success in Canada and had gold records in Europe. So my Canadian label controlled my worldwide licensing rights. So this is
Right.
a little bit of music industry politics for you. And they had negotiated, distribution deals in pretty much every other territory in the world. The Benelux, the UK, Japan, Australia, and I toured a bunch of those places as well.
Right.
But the US market was always the hard one, because when on my most successful records, which were Body Rock in 1989 and Some Girls Do in 1991,
Right.
I had US labels that were extremely interested in signing me, but at that time, my record company's agenda was to get a label deal for the whole label in the States. So a lot of these labels didn't want to sign the whole roster. They just wanted me. And my
Right.
label wasn't willing to let just me go. So it was like a bizarre catch 22 of politics that I was caught in the middle of. And then in the early 90s, Attic Records, my label in Canada, distributed by A&M up here, they were trying to start up Attic America, which would have been their own label in America. And they had a few $1 million of investment money, but then grunge happened and it kind of
Yeah.
sort of sidelined. The majority of their roster was that kind of classic rock 80s sound, and the whole thing fell apart. And so that is sort of a lengthy explanation as to why you probably never really heard me get a lot of airplay in the USA, or I wasn't front racked in all the US record stores, but I was everywhere else in the world. So if you were a rock fan, a hard rock fan, and you were reading Kerrang magazine
Right.
and you know, classic rock magazine and all of those sounds and Hit Parader and all those ones, you would have seen my face for sure.
Absolutely. It's like you were definitely getting the coverage and there were interviews and it's like I knew who you were, but it's like I'll be darned if I could ever find you in a record store. And I don't remember ever seeing, because MTV's like, Doro Pesh was there and Warlock, Lita Ford, Joan Jett, the whole Heart, like, but I'm like, why are we not really seeing? I was really curious about your music back then, and thank God for the internet because in the meantime, I had time to catch up.
Well, it's funny because I have this sort of cult following of a group of US fans that all know me and have all done their research to find out more about me. But I find that that's changing. The last few albums, that's changed a bit because with, you know, the internet, distribution, if you're on Amazon, you're global, right? So
Right.
I found that that has changed in the last few years for me, for sure. I took a bit of a hiatus from writing and recording between 2004 and 2016, well, 2015, because I got married and my husband and I had our daughter, and then shortly thereafter our son. So I was sort of in the throes of motherhood at that
Right.
time. But when I came back in 2015, I wrote and recorded an album called Fire and Gasoline, and I've since made this is my fifth album now since 2016 that I'm on. Radio On is it's my yeah, my fifth album. So there you
Yes,
go.
that
So
is upcoming. Here coming out what June 18th is the date I
actually,
have.
it is. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Randy. That date is pushed back to July 23rd because every vinyl factory in the world is backed up right now.
Gotcha. You
So,
know, I questioned that when I wrote it down because I thought I had seen July, but it's like, okay, I just figured I must have misread that or something. Um, I did get to listen to it because, you know, like in the hours leading up to this, I actually visited YouTube and I found one. There's a performance from back in 2018. I
yeah,
watched that.
cool.
I listened to the new album because I remembered that we had been serviced it. So Um, it's a good package, you know. I mean, it's probably not as heavy as some of what our listeners would like, but that's fine because I'm very diverse in my tastes, and it covers a lot of bases of what I would listen to. So, and it's very aptly titled because I picture pretty much every song on the album, you know, is hearing it on the radio for sure.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, to me, that's a compliment. I mean, you know, my music is sort of my rock brand has meandered from heavier rock when I was younger
Right,
into more commercial rock, into blues oriented rock. It's always, I mean, the basis, I would say, of my music is, you know, heavy guitar based music for
right.
sure. Right. But it's kind of meandered in and out of a few different flavors stylistically. And that's just a reflection of the fact that I'm a huge music fan and I like all kinds of music. And I've
And
always considered myself more of, you know, and I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing myself to the Stones or David Bowie. And like, I'm not putting myself up in that echelon with them,
right,
but artists like those guys, their music has, you know, ebbed and flowed throughout the years. I mean, Bowie always uniquely sounded like Bowie, but, you know, he went through definitely some stylistic experimentation and changes over the course of his career. And I mean, hey, let's be honest. "Miss You" by the Stones was a disco song. You know, like
yes,
they
absolutely, it
were
was.
they were listening to and absorbing the culture that, you know, that they were part of at that time. And so I guess as the years have progressed and as I've it's become important to me to just hone my songwriting craft, become a better and better songwriter over the years. You know, writing really strong melodic content and strong, catchy lyric content is really paramountly important to me. So I think my albums have, you know, I think the strength of the songwriting is definitely there. And
For
it's
sure.
definitely a rock record, but it's not, no, it's not a metal album per se, no.
No. But I will say this: Devil's Gold in particular. Toward the end, I kind of like not so much lyrically, but kind of like in the music itself. Like maybe in the arrangement a little bit. I got a little bit of a Fleetwood Mac vibe as the song was closing because I don't know, it just kind of reminded me of the Chain a little bit, and I'm like,
Well,
I
that
mean
would
that,
be, you'd be correct. And that, you know, Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks was one of my biggest influences when I was a teenager. Her and the Girls from Heart. What I
yeah, oh
loved
yeah,
about what Ann and Nancy Wilson did was they managed to be able to take both that very, very feminine, soft, acoustic um, vibe and juxtaposition it with stuff that was very heavy and Zeppelin-esque. And, you
yeah,
know, I've always, again, like these were some of my biggest influences. And I think that I'm still projecting that in my own music nowadays. So if you're hearing that, I think that's a compliment. Thank you.
oh, it was meant as a compliment because I love Fleetwood Mac myself. You know, it's like I know it's not very metal to admit that, but you know,
Oh,
we all
please.
have our personal, you know, musical, you know, what we grew up on, and then it sticks with us. And like Stevie Nicks will forever be one of my favorites.
Yeah, she's she's a goddess for sure.
She is. Um, So, new album. I've been asking this frequently, just because of the current world situation. The recording processes have been different for everybody. How did you find it to be this time around with COVID?
Well, we're very, very fortunate in that we had our studio time booked to go in and at least record our bed tracks. I'm a very, very big believer in getting bed tracks live off the floor, your guitar, bass, and drums and vocals in one room. You're all
Yep.
making eye contact with each other. You're all reading each other's mail musically. I believe that there is a magic that happens when a band is in a room together, and an energy that you can only capture that way. Like, the great bands of our past, like The Who and Zeppelin, and, stuff like that, where you're not locked into a click track or, locked to a grid. And the way a lot of modern recording happens these days is people literally record to a click track and send files back and forth, and everybody plays on that click. And to me, it loses the magic. Personally, that's my feeling. So we were very lucky in that we had our bed tracks booked for recording the week that COVID exploded around the world in March 2020. So it was a bit of a harrowing experience because we were in the studio. We were rushing to get the tracks done. The studio was about to shut down. My guitar player had to fly back to Toronto, but we got them done. Then we had to go back and finish doing all of the overdub tracks and the rest of the vocals in a home recording situation because everybody had to self-isolate at that point in time. But I feel very blessed that we got those bed tracks live off the floor. And yeah, so the recording since then, basically the band and we all talked about, aligning our home recording equipment so we were all working in the same platform. Yeah, and so we're all working in Logic, and yeah, recording my own vocals downstairs and keyboard parts and things like that. But in a weird way, I kind of like that because there's a lot of luxury I can put down a keyboard part and listen back to it the next day and go, it's not working for me, erase, and do it again and pick a totally different vibe. Whereas when you're under the gun with, the studio clock is ticking and you're you're spending that money, there's a lot more pressure to get it done right there and then on the spot, right?
Good deal. So yeah, going back to that time period in the 80s where you were coming up, did you ever kind of feel like you were in the shadow of like some of the others, like in the States here, because we had Lita Ford, we had Joan Jett.
I wouldn't say in the shadow of, because I had a very good stronghold in Europe. Like I was playing there quite a bit. I was, I know this sounds crazy, but back when A&M was distributing the Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation, my Body Rock album was outselling that album in Canada. So I was a very big star in Canada at the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I ever felt that I was in the shadow of artists like that. That's probably not the right term to use. However, I did always feel a bit, and again, I'm not bitter. Life goes on. We all of our careers fell apart in the 90s when grunge happened. Let's be honest. Everybody's career fell off a cliff. And so we all had to sort of regroup and figure out what we were going to do at that point in time. But yeah, when my biggest success was happening up here, I felt definitely a bit of resentment toward my label because I went, man, you guys have me in a stronghold where you won't let me sign with a US label. They want me. They don't want the rest of your roster. And I couldn't leave. I couldn't. And in fact, that was actually the impetus to me leaving my label in 1992. I left my major label in Canada and went independent in 92. I was one of the very first acts in Canada to go indie and start my own label. And that was one of the big reasons because my hands were tied. And so I felt a little bit ripped off, like they were preventing me from reaching an audience that could potentially be an amazing audience for me, and fans that I could potentially have in America. So yeah, that I would say that not living in the shadow, but yeah, that I was prevented from, stepping over the border. But that, this is a very common problem that a lot of Canadian bands have had historically. So
Like I've noticed that with other, because it's like some European bands as well. Because I love Nightwish. Are you familiar with them?
yeah, I am. Yeah, they're great.
Cool. Incredible band, but it's just it's like I'd love to see them in like an arena setting, and when they come to the States, I kind of have to settle for a large club or a theater, which is all more intimate is good, but man, I'd love to see them full production. Uh,
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. That's
it's
kind of,
just,
yeah. Yep.
and I don't know if it's just for whatever reason, if the United States is just we have this thing where we don't want to fully embrace metal music.
Fully embrace
It's
metal
always
music. Is that what you said?
not as much as like other countries. Like you go to Europe and it's almost like you see families going to metal shows, and
It's a religion over
it
there.
is. It's almost yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you hear about that, and over here it just still seems to be taboo in some circles, and I think it's kind of a shame because I mean I know people who kind of do the same thing where it's like they've raised their kids on the bands and the kids love it just as much, but I don't think it's as common over here, unfortunately. I don't know, that's just my personal insight. um
No, and I hear what you're saying. They are huge, huge music fans in Europe, and rock music has never waned in terms of its popularity. Like
right.
rock and hard rock over there, you're absolutely correct about that. And that's the beautiful thing. Like I go over. I'm playing like a 1,500 seat casino in Canada, and then I go to Europe, and I'm like on stage in front of 50,000 people at a festival. You
Yep.
know, and that's the way it is. And and that's just the different markets, right? Over here, that's a lot of it comes down to the fact that there's not that many labels left, as you know.
No, there really isn't.
So there's a lot of control focused in just a few companies, and they decide what you're going to hear on the
Yeah.
radio and what you're going to see on Sirius FM, like and the video channels. It's sort of and yeah, so yeah, sometimes I got to tell you, I feel like I'm a little out of that loop. But what I can tell you is that what my label guys tell me is that the difference is they go, we know when we sign you, you're going to sell physical product, you know, and
Exactly.
those acts are going to get like 1 million downloads, but they're not going to make any money. This is the thing. There's a bit of a beauty in kind of being what they call a legacy act, right? And having success in the 80s and 90s. It's funny because my On Fire and Gasoline was my comeback rock record in 2016. I actually paid for the manufacturing myself because it was a comeback record and people were a little worried to take a risk. I couldn't keep up with the orders. They kept every 2 weeks, I kept saying, can you send us this much money? Because we're going to press another 1,000. And I was like, am I actually selling this many records? Like, holy crap. I didn't
You were
realize it.
missed.
Pardon me?
You were missed.
I couldn't believe the demand, and so that's the beautiful thing is that I know I'm going to sell vinyl and I know I'm going to sell CDs because my fans are over 40 and they still like to have and to hold physical product in their hands. I still love that. I love looking through an album and opening it up and going, oh my gosh, look at this beautiful inner sleeve. My son and I just bought the White Stripes greatest hits and I'm there and I'm opening it up and looking at all the old photographs, and I love that. There's a beauty in that.
It's something I miss because I was a complete fool back around the mid 90s, and I unloaded my entire 500 plus vinyl collection, at least 500 albums, and because CDs, think of the
Screaming.
future.
Really?
Yeah, I should have held on to every last one of them, but
My husband is a massive vinyl collector. We have a collection. We had to build an addition onto our home. We have about a quarter million pieces of vinyl in our house. I know
good
that sounds
lord.
crazy. It's true. Yeah, go to my Instagram. If you go to my Instagram, Lee Aaron or
Okay.
Lee Aaron dot music on Instagram. I have this Tuesday thing I do called Ask Lee. And if you scroll back to a few of them, I'm filming a couple of them in our gigantic vinyl library, and you can see some of it. It's pretty
I
crazy.
yes, I am
Yeah.
definitely on Instagram, and I will certainly check that out.
Yeah.
That's I can't even imagine the core.
Yeah. Well, I have to get on a ladder to get there. I'm like, where is
Oh,
this?
no,
You know,
I'm picturing, like in like the bookstores when we still had bookstores, and the big ladder people would, or some the libraries even some of the got the ladder that rolls along and you got to reach a higher shelf, and I'm picturing that
yep.
completely.
That's pretty much what it's about. Yeah.
So I like to give free reign to any other topics you'd like to talk about. If you have anything else coming up, feel free to speak openly.
Oh, well, not only do we have a Radio On coming out on July 23rd, which I'm very
Right.
excited about. We got some videos on the way for you guys, which are going to be super cool. I'm very excited about that. And we last year, we were as a band, we were bored in September, and my guitar player called me and he's like, let's do a Christmas album. I'm like, okay, that would be fun. So last year we did a Christmas album that was released just independently through our socials. So that if you got it last year, you got a limited edition copy. But this year, MetalWulf, my label out of Germany, has picked it up the option for 2021. And we have a rock and roll Christmas record coming out at Christmas this year as well, with 2 bonus tracks. And so I'm totally excited about that as well. And I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that this crap is going to end because all my shows have been pushed back into 2022 right now.
Right.
But it looks like it is looking hopeful and opening up, and I can't wait to get down to the States. My manager was telling me the other day, he said, something's going on because I got 3 calls last week from American promoters that want to bring you to the States for festivals. And I'm like, yes,
Very cool.
finally get
Now,
down there.
in recent weeks, I've noticed my email is starting to be flooded with announcements from bands in town again. So it's like this is a very welcome sight. So yeah, so it'd be cool if you got any shows around, any it's like
I don't know
I'm
where you
missing
live. Where are
concerts.
you? What region are
Yeah,
you in?
that's where we were. Actually,
Yeah.
yes, you were asking that at the very beginning, and I'm located. Our show is based in the Finger Lakes region of New York State.
Okay.
I'm in Seneca Falls. We have people in Waterloo, New York, Newark, New York, um, Ovid area, leading down into. I mean, we've had a rotating cast of characters that still show up periodically here and there. That are pretty much all across the Finger Lakes. Ithaca and Canandaigua. So if
Well,
you're familiar with that region, that's where we are.
I know sort of roughly where that is to the south of the southern Ontario there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know where you are. So, okay, well, I'm gonna keep that in mind. I'd love to come down
If you
there
were
and do
to
some
look at like
shows.
a New York State map, you got Rochester, and then you got Syracuse. Seneca Falls is about halfway between at the northern end of Cayuga Lake.
Okay, okay. There used to be a Cayuga Speedway thing, wasn't there? Am I thinking about something different?
Probably Rolling Wheels is the one I'm thinking of that's closer to that area. It
Hmm.
was between Auburn and Syracuse. And then there was like Weedsport. Oh my God, Weedsport had a big dirt track there. And that was also like, we had this thing, every summer. It's like, it's summer when they're rocking at Weedsport. And we had Heart played there a couple times, Blue Oyster Cult, Metallica played twice. Oh, guys, as far as shows I was personally at, I've seen Rat. it was supposed to be with Twisted Sister, but Dee blew his voice out the night before, so it was Rat and Mama's Boys. I've seen Heart there. I've seen Motley Crue there. I've seen Queensryche, Metallica, Operation Rock and Roll in '91. We always looked forward to summer shows in Weedsport. And one of my favorite stories regarding Weedsport, and maybe one of these days I'll actually have a chance to talk to Axl Rose about this, because Guns N' Roses opened for Aerosmith summer of '88, and Axl actually went on record after that show that was the craziest crowd he'd ever played in front of. And I'm like, yeah, I was there. I know exactly what he means. People were literally, and it's just, those crowds were always out of control, I remember. But yes, I live in a good region for music, so good times.
That's great. Well, I can't wait till it opens up again and we can hopefully get down there and do some shows, and I might get a chance to actually meet you in person at some point, Randy.
Yes, that would be nice. I'd be very happy to just get back out and start doing interviews. I mean, the Skype sessions have been fun, but I miss getting, it's like getting on the tour bus and sitting down or finding.
Yeah. Just going.
I found, some of the interviews we've done. Another Canadian act, Anvil. We got to interview them at the Montage while another band, one of their support bands, was playing at the time of the interview. They're downstairs, we're upstairs, and of course we're trying to hear what Lips and Rob are trying to, and that, don't go to YouTube and listen to that interview. It's like, if you want to, it's a train wreck, but you can't really hear anything, and it's like, we tried to clean that up. So yes, getting on the tour bus is always the best option for. It's a more chill, quieter vibe, and I miss those days.
Doing an arena interview backstage when the other band is sound checking,
It's more of a club, the Montage Music Hall in Rochester. So it was a club show, and it was like, I think one of the local bands was playing, and our interview just happened to time. So it's like, you might hear, be able to hear stuff in between. So it was just such a mess. But live and learn.
Brandy, I've got to run because Nathan, unfortunately, he's scheduled these interviews a half an hour apart for me.
Yes, so I just happened to notice the time. I get rambling.
That's okay.
I like to talk.
I got to jump on Skype with someone else, but it was an absolute pleasure talking to you, my friend, okay?
Yeah.
And hopefully we get a chance to meet at some point soon.
I would like that. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Good luck on the new album, and
thank you.
Support the Metallic Onslaught. Give me a few likes on the Randy MetalWulf page. I got to throw my own, And wonderful talking to you. Thank you for taking the time.
Right.
And
Randy, you have a great evening. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye.